And now, as always, on Tuesdays, for the third Tuesday in a row, I'd like to welcome Jennifer Lawless, the director of the Women in Politics Institute down at American University. Jennifer, welcome. Thanks for Skyping in.
My pleasure.
We say lots to talk about this week because inside the Beltway, there's always lots to talk about. And wanted to start with the new DNC chair, with Tom Perez. Sort of, what's the talk down there? Brown grad, as we know. What's the look? How is he going to lead the party, especially after such a divisive primary? What's the outlook? Or is it united against Trump?
I think the sense in D.C. is that it's far more united than the sense around the country. There was quite a bit of a contested race between Perez and Keith Ellison, obviously, where Perez represented the Hillary Clinton wing of the party and Ellison represented the Bernie Sanders wing. And it was a tough fight. But at the end of the day, similar to Sanders getting behind Clinton, we see Ellison serving as deputy to Perez. And so as far as the D.C. community is concerned, as far as those on the Hill are concerned, my sense is that this was a smooth sailing election and that everybody's support is behind Perez to try and make sure that the Democrats take back the House and also build their numbers in state legislatures.
And what do you have to say? The governor here was at the convention and got some national press, again, being mentioned as a potential presidential contender. You know, we've written often, and folks have paid attention to sort of some of the press she gets here and some of the struggles that she sees in her administration, and then oftentimes gets very glowing press with other names tossed out there as potential presidential contenders. Do you think, obviously we've still got 18 here that she's looking at, but how do you see her stature on the national stage from a position down in D.C.?
Well, I mean, I think it's glass is half full and glass is half empty. The glass is half full in that we know that governors tend to be the most successful presidential candidates. The overwhelming majority of presidents come from governors' mansions. The Democrats do not have many governors, and they certainly have very few women. So on those counts, she fares very, very well. The downside, of course, is that Rhode Island is a pretty small state that doesn't deliver much in the way of diversity when it comes to appealing to Republicans or even independents. And so it's hard to figure out how that would play nationally.
Speaking of national politics, Speaker Ryan is expected to be in Rhode Island, I believe, on Thursday. Talk to me. I mean, you're, again, very much on the left side here, but what do you think of his visit to the state and how Rhode Island plays in national GOP politics? Obviously, I'm sure he's going around drumming up support for midterm elections, but what's your sense of him coming to the state? Where does Rhode Island stand in your esteem nationally on the GOP front?
Well, there aren't that many state legislatures across the country anymore that are still in Democratic control. And so I think that any blue states now seem like they're potential game for Republicans. I don't think that that's the case in Rhode Island. I can't imagine any scenario under which that would happen. But it's a pretty easy trip to make, and it's certainly not inconvenient for Paul Ryan to be there and just sort of, get connected with the local Republicans. But I can't imagine anything major coming of it.
But just keep tabs on it, keep eyes on it. And then obviously all eyes tonight on Trump addressing Congress. I'll talk to his budget in a minute, but what's the expectation? Obviously, it's been such a contentious rollout of his administration. What are folks really watching for in the speech this evening? And how does it, what should we be looking for here in Rhode Island?
I mean, I think your guess is as good as mine. Generally, this is the equivalent of the State of the Union address. It's just that because it's his first month in office, it's not an official State of the Union. Traditionally, in these speeches, presidents lay out very clear agendas and basically ask Congress to support pieces of legislation that they think will help the administration. Donald Trump has not been a president that has been big on specifics. And so it's hard to figure out what he's going to be talking about. We don't know if we're going to just see more of the same kind of campaign trail speech we've been seeing, or if we're going to see a speech that has a bit more policy involved. I'm personally most interested in how he's going to be received by Democrats in the chamber. We generally have had presidents who, even in highly partisan times, have at least tried in the early days of a new administration to unite the country and to unite Congress. Donald Trump has made no such attempt. And so it's going to be unclear to me that they're going to be as approving of him as Republicans may have been for Barack Obama, at least in terms of demonstrating enthusiasm for the things that they might agree with.
So you don't see him reaching out across the aisle this evening to wave the white flag to the Democrats. That's not in your prediction.
I don't, and I don't see a lot of Democratic members seeking an autograph or going for hugs and kisses.
Well, a lot of eyes will be on that this evening. Let's talk about what's been coming out about his budget, thoughts on the budget. And one of the big items, obviously, is a huge increase in military spending. What's the sense down there in terms of what that looks like for the country? And then, and then cuts elsewhere. I mean, where are the major concerns? Obviously, the military sector, I'm sure, loves to see this. And here in Rhode Island, there's the potential, obviously, to see some upside from that. So how do you think that his budget is going to impact Rhode Island on both sides, on the military spending, but then also on the cuts?
Well, on the military spending side, obviously, any state that has a military base or proximity to one is going to benefit. When we look at the cuts, though, it's unclear how he's going to pay for this. Again, he's been a lot more specific about how he's going to spend the money than how he's going to recoup the money from different parts of the budget. We haven't heard much about Medicare or Social Security. We've heard that from Congress. Donald Trump was virtually silent on those issues on the campaign trail, and he's been pretty silent about the extent to which entitlement programs are going to take a hit now. So tonight, everybody is going to be listening for how these cuts are going to affect them and where they're actually going to take place, because there's no way that he can have the spending he's planning on by just sort of cleaning up government and finding some extra money that we didn't realize was there.
Were you surprised to see that level of increase that folks are talking about in military spending? Do you think he had signaled it during the campaign or in the early stages of his administration? Talk to me a little bit about that. Was that anticipated, or was that more of a surprise?
So I think that was pretty anticipated. The number itself might have been a little bit higher than people expected, but I don't think there was that much of a surprise. It was consistent with campaign trail rhetoric and the kinds of people that he was surrounding himself with. I think the bigger surprise, and the one thing that he's done so far that's been pretty inconsistent with what he said on the campaign trail, was the transgender bathroom move last week. So this was something that he had been pretty outspoken about on the campaign trail. He differentiated himself from his Republican opponents by saying that this was not an issue that he felt was even controversial. Anybody should be able to use the bathroom that they want. And then he's now apparently adopted Mike Pence's view of this. So that's been really the first time that we've seen him go against something he had said on the campaign trail.
Is there a sense of that, of Vice President Pence having that level of influence in the Trump administration, especially from the more conservative side of the party? As you just mentioned, it was something that the president did not indicate during the campaign trail. How much influence do you think Pence has on the president?
My sense is that when it comes to domestic policy and social policy in particular, Pence is going to have tremendous influence. He might be a strong voice when it comes to foreign policy, but as we saw last week with his speech and John McCain's speech at NATO, people in other nations are not quite sure whether they can trust Pence to speak on behalf of the administration, because Donald Trump goes rogue a lot. Or maybe it's not going rogue if you're the president, but the reality is that on social policy, I think Pence is certainly going to be the person shaping it. And we saw that the beginnings of that last week.
And speaking of things within the administration, we talked a little bit earlier today, the brouhaha today about Kellyanne Conway kneeling on the couch in the Oval Office. Is this media gone wild? What's your reaction to this? I mean, it's just all over, and folks are covering again her kneeling at a high level meeting with black educators, and she's on the sofa and she's kneeling with her phone. Is this an issue? Is this not an issue?
As the director of the Women in Politics Institute, I feel like it's important not to spend so much time talking about women's appearance or how they're sitting or what they're doing. But I'm sorry, this was just beyond the pale and completely ridiculous. For a woman who orchestrates every single thing she does, you've got to expect that there was some reason behind it, and I just can't figure out what that was. Her high heels were literally cutting into the seat of the couch, and I don't know if you've seen, but there's another photo where she's sort of like crouching down and taking a photo of the black educators from that same position on the couch. So I just don't get it. But she clearly knew there was a photographer there. Maybe this is an opportunity for them to say that the media are focused on the wrong thing once again, and they wanted to be sure that the media had something to focus on. But for the life of me, it just seemed incredibly disrespectful, and there seemed to be a complete lack of decorum in the Oval Office.
Well, it'll be interesting to see, I'm assuming moving forward, what we see inside the Oval Office. As you said, you raised a number of potential scenarios for why that was the case. But again, there was a media fixation on it. There certainly was a lot of coverage as to the appropriateness or why she did it. Whether or not it has any legs, do we see anything beyond today? I don't see so. Do you?
No, and I don't think it really speaks to any kind of problem with the administration. But I do think that an administration and an individual who has generally been so careful about what she said and how she said it generally doesn't sit like that for no reason, knowing that there's a photographer in the room. So I find the whole thing just somewhat bizarre.
The Oval Office gate over there. So what else? What are you taking a look at? Let's look beyond the speech tonight. Obviously, we'd like to check in with you weekly. Well, the coming week, what are you keeping on tabs on down in D.C.?
Well, for the next couple of weeks, the Supreme Court hearings are going to be getting underway. The meetings with the individual senators are going to be taking place, and there still remain a series of confirmations to the cabinet that will be awaiting. So this has become quite a long, drawn-out process, but over the course of the next several weeks, I think it's going to be a lot more of the same on that front.
Well, it'll be interesting when we do catch up with you next week to do, Monday morning quarterback. It'll probably seem like a month ago that the president addressed Congress, but again, all eyes on it this evening. Will you be watching at home, watching with students? What any events planned down at American?
So no, I'll be watching at home. We usually do big events for the State of the Union, but again, it was unclear exactly what the speech was going to be or how it was going to be conducted. And frankly, we usually do big events for the White House Correspondents' Dinner as well, but that's probably not going to happen this year either.
Again, with his absence from the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Well, always appreciate getting, as I said, the Inside the Beltway take from Jennifer Lawless, former congressional candidate here and director of the Women in Politics Institute at American University, professor of government there, and like to pick her brain on all things Democratic politics down inside